Welcome to the BumbleKast. I'm your host, Ian Flynn, the Bumble King, and joining me as always is my Bumble co-host, Kyle, JCRB Krause.
Well, what the heck are we doing here today, Ian?
We have a special guest-sponsored episode. Please welcome to the BumbleKast, Andrew D.
Hopping
That's
right into
me.
it. Yay, it's him. The name that's
Last
been
time I
on,
was on
in this
here-
show for ages. Forever. For a very long time.
Yeah. It was a few years, maybe. I think the first episode that I was on, we talked about Pokemon.
Something like that.
Something like that, yeah. So yeah, I'm here this time because I officially announced a project that's been probably in the works since before my first appearance. God. It went through a number of different iterations. I tried to pitch it as a cartoon to a cartoon studio, and that didn't work. And so I approached Ian. Again, this must have been, oh God, like 7 years ago, maybe, I'm guessing. But it was a while ago, and I was like, can you help me rework this? And so you did. It was a lot better. Pitched it again, and it was still a no. And I was like, well, that sucks. What can I do with this? And so I decided to turn it into a comic. I was like, by God, I'm going to get this out there somehow. And so then I don't know what came first. If I found the artist first, which was Draw Lover Lala, or you. Well, you were already attached to it in some form anyway. So I was like, you are the perfect fit to help me write this because you already have been helping me rework this. So I approached you about you want to script the comic, and then I synced up with Lala, who is the artist on it. And so the way we design stuff is I'll have a general sense of how I want a character to look. And like the main characters, I had an idea of how I wanted them to look. And I said to her, I'm like, this is what the characters look like. And she gave me back these amazing sketches, which was basically my drawing, but better. I was like, oh my God, you're the artist for this project. So generally there are some characters where I'm like, yeah, I think they should look kind of like this. And then there are other characters where I'm like, I don't know, do you have any ideas? So once that started, me and you went back and forth with the script. There was a couple of reworks, not a lot of reworks, but just a couple of things here and there. One of the things I remember in particular was the relationship between the Blythe, who was the villain, the clown, and his henchman. Why did I forget my own character's name? Crampside. Why did I forget my own character's name? That is embarrassing. Oh God, I'm done. It's over. Bye, guys.
You get so familiar with it, it's like, oh yeah,
I know.
him.
Oh God, that is horrendously embarrassing.
Maybe it's not something. Maybe it's not something you say out loud very often. So you're like,
no, I don't. That's why.
How does mouth move to make this word? I get it. Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah. So so yeah, one of the interesting things was so this is it's not a copy. It's a little bit of a spiritual homage in a sense to the shows that we grew up with. It's a very 90s inspired show. Specifically, I would say Sonic SatAM, which I have to admit I've never actually watched. I've seen like one episode. So I can't copy something I've never seen. But it's kind of like based on what I would expect it to have been. And it was interesting when you wrote the scene where Blythe was angry that the kids, Ash and got away, and Crampside was afraid of Blythe, and I was like, oh wait, this is not a Snively and Robotnik. Like, they are not Snively and Robotnik. And in my head, they're very much almost like besties in a sense. And I didn't know how to describe it, but then you rewrote it perfectly. But yeah, I feel like my thought process here is all over the place, but talking about the script and how we worked on it. It was a lot of fun. And you introduced some concepts that I didn't even think of, like the name of the forest. You said the Magiwood. I was like, where did you come up with that idea? And then I looked up, couldn't find Magiwood anywhere. I was like, this is a new idea. That's awesome. Yeah, let's call it the Magiwood. And
throw stuff out there and see if it sticks.
Yeah, it was great. I was like, I like that. And
but before we get any further about the process and the thing behind it, tell the folks at home just what this project is.
Okay. Yeah. Good idea. Yeah, I can. You can help me take my thoughts and channel them on the correct paths because my brain is everywhere. It's like I want to talk about this and I want to talk about that. But so this project is it is a love letter to my childhood. When I first started playing games outside with my friends and making stories, and so there's inspiration in there. But the story itself, the general premise is that you have these two kids who were part of a town, and there was another major town that got taken over by this mysterious clown figure, Baron Boson von Blythe, and his sidekick, Dr. Crampside. And they had the population had to flee that medieval city. It's a medieval setting. The city was called Circa City. And everybody fled. You had the army, whoever could fight stayed behind. And so the aftermath is, everyone who could fight is missing. And everyone who fled found this place called Hideaway, which is a town that they've built up and settled in, I guess, the Magicwood now, for lack of a better term. That is, I guess, now the official term, the Magicwood, which is a huge, dense forest that spans a majority of the continent. So the question of why doesn't Blythe just burn it down was introduced very early because he can't. It's not feasible. It would cost too much money and resources. It would take years. And so now you have the main cast who they can't actually, they're not an army, but they're just the straggler. What's the word? Stragglers? Is that the word? They fled. They're in Hideaway, and they're just fighting against the empire of Baron Boson von Blythe, who has taken their city, Circus City, and renamed it Circus City. Him and his clown puns. So, and we got his mysterious army called the Troopers, and everything is clown based. And so that's where the story picks up. We have the two main characters, Ash and Am, who actually come from a different town that was taken over by Blythe, and they quickly became a thorn in his side. Circus City, not Circuit. But yeah, they quickly became a thorn in his side because upon fleeing their town, they grabbed a hold of some tech from Blythe's army, and now they're wielding some of his weapons, and so that gives them the edge. And so the first issue, the first few pages that I released, opens up with these kids in the city. They're doing something which you'll see in the next few pages why they're in the city in the first place. They were looking for something. And then, that's the premise, what's going on, how things led up to where they are. And so in the next few pages, you're going to meet a couple of the other main characters in the main hero group, which you also helped come up with an accent for one of them, which was pretty cool. That's me talking about the premise and how it formed. I suppose how it first came about was, like I said, I would play games in the yard with my friends. When I was thinking of a cartoon to pitch, I was thinking, what did I do as a kid? Kids would like things. What would kids like? As a kid, what did I like? As a kid, I played these games. So it was really formed from the mind of kids. And so the characters, we chose our real names. So my name Andrew and my friend's name was Alex. So that's why Ash and Am's names start with A. I was like, I don't want to keep our names. Let's think of something else that's quick, one syllable. So my friend always wanted to use the sword, which was the wiffle ball bat. And I was like, well, I don't have another wiffle ball bat, but I got this scooper thing that, I forget what it's called, but there's like these two almost like ice cream scoop things, and you toss the ball to the other person and they catch it. I don't know what they're called, but I would I would hold it from the inside and the handle would stick out like a gun. I was like, oh, I got a gun arm. So it kind of became this sword and gun duo. And the initial premise of our game, which is not the same premise as Eternal Quest, but you can see where it came from, is that there was some kind of town that was overtaken by some villain. I think it was a witch, and I think she had a clown sidekick. And the idea was that there was this game that my friend had played at the time I think it was a Final Fantasy game, but the point is he misinterpreted something, and we took that misinterpretation and ran with it. He had said that when he saw early trailers, he thought that like the witch was the villain, and then it ended up being someone else, or I don't know the exact, but it was like a surprise villain in a sense. So we kind of took that and ran with it for our game, where the witch was defeated and the clown became the main villain, and so the clown stuck by, and I don't even remember what his name was, because a lot of this was so long ago. But when we played this game, we referred to it as Crampside because the sidekick of the villain his name was Crampside, and he walked with as if his side was cramped, like a hunchback. And so we'd be like, "Oh, you want to play Crampside?" Because eventually the clown was defeated and Crampside became the main villain, which is not what's happening in the show or in the comic. But I mean, in our game, that's how we refer. That's why I only remember Crampside, which is funny because it was the one name I forgot before when I mentioned it. But yeah, so we called it that, and we also called it Eternal Quest because it was like, we don't want this game to end, so where else can we go with it? Yeah, it was a sideways hunchback, Dominic the Raccoon. But in the actual art for the comic, we changed it to be... Initially, I wanted it to be a sideways hunchback, but I was like, this doesn't look that good. And then Lala took my ideas, and she reworked it into Crampside, as you see in the comic now, and he looks so much better than I could have imagined. But so, yeah, that's the initial conception. That's what it turned out to be. That's kind of everything in a bit of a nutshell on how things came to be and how Eternal Quest is now. And it's funny that some people pointed things out. They're like, Crampside looks like Gru from Minions or Despicable Me, which I've never watched. And I'm like, I could see that, but that's not what he was based on. There's actually, I had gotten, I don't think it was a McDonald's toy. I think it was just a toy that my aunt had got me when I was younger. And there was a few characters from some show, I think called Toonsylvania, which I've never watched. And so whenever we played this game as kids, I would imagine the Hunchback would be the Hunchback in that Toonsylvania because I had the toy of him. And so I think that's where some of the inspiration came from. And then we changed a lot. And I was like, with the whole circus motif, he should be more of like maybe like a ringleader. And so he didn't turn out to look like a ringleader, but I think somewhere along the line of reworking his designs with Lala, he went from ringleader to whatever he is now. So, yeah, there's a lot of fascinating jumping from point A to point B to get where we are. So I can see where people are drawing, like, oh, this looks like this. But I'm like, yeah, it does, but that wasn't the intention. I'd say the only intended thing is Blythe his shape is reminiscent of old school Robotnik, but he is very much not Robotnik. Like, he's a completely different kind of character. He actually likes his sidekick. Robotnik doesn't give a crap about anyone. So, I don't know if anybody has any questions or wants to hear anything specific about it, but that was how Eternal Quest came to be and how it is now.
That's right. We are recording this live over in the BumbleKast Discord, so we have our regular listeners sitting in and tossing out the occasional question, not the equational question.
Yeah.
Talking is hard.
Mm-hmm. Especially when you don't know your own characters' names. I'm never going to live that one down.
The initial animation pitch, and it's funny thinking back on that and just how different the project has become since then.
Oh, yeah. Nani wants to ask why clowns. That's just whatever. As a kid, my friend, he misinterpreted a trailer for a game, or he misinterpreted something. I don't even remember the game. It might have been a Final Fantasy game. That's why I said that without confidence. But the villain ended up being a clown, or one of the villains was a clown. I don't know if it was Kefka. I don't think it was that Final Fantasy. I honestly don't remember the game. But we just took that and ran with it. And so when I turned it into the comic, I was like, let's do a clown, but also let's do the original intended clown from our childhood game. But let's also make everything clown-based for this guy. So I just liked that idea. I think there was some inspiration from the Metropolis being turned into Robotropolis. And I was like, this guy is going to do clown and circus themes, but I like the idea of changing names. Like, this is his now. So Circa City now becomes Circus City. And then in page 6, which is the last page that I showed, he said that he was going to turn Pedalville into his industrial wonderland Metalville, which is not circus themed, but at least it's his. I remember there was some going back and forth with that with me and you. I was like, what's the town going to be called? What can we name the town, and what can we change it to? And we just decided, I was like, you know what? The name doesn't have to be a circus theme. It's just he's changing it. So then it went from Pedalville to Metalville. And then you asked me something. I don't remember what you asked me.
Joke.
What was that?
I mean, he's an evil clown. It can be a bad joke.
Yeah.
It doesn't necessarily have to be like circus centric.
Well, the actual town that the boys come from was called Prism Village. That's Prism, and after it, or Prism Village, yeah. And after he takes it over and the kids flee, it becomes Prison Village, which is like a nod to the game that my friend and I used to play, where it's like, oh, we're from this town that's been taken over, and it was really run like a prison camp. Before, like, we stole tech and defeated the villain, and then we went on a quest outside the village, which is not what's going to happen in the comic per se, but we like went on a quest like a game. Like, we went from land to land, from level to level. We went through caves and all this stuff and defeated monsters and whatnot. But the initial conception of Prism Village being Prison Village was like, oh, that's not clown theme in nature, but a clown could, like you said, make jokes or change things. Like, oh, it's a rhyming scheme to an extent. But you did mention you forgot about that initial pitch, and that pitch was Ash and they get lost in these woods fleeing from troopers, and it becomes labyrinthine in nature, where they cannot get out of this forest, and then they meet some owls who, through some rhyming conventions, are telling them that basically they need to overcome their weaknesses to get out of the woods. And then they come across a giant mechanical wolf, like cybernetic wolf, and fighting it, or they fight it, they overcome it, they overcome their own weaknesses in the fight, and then they are able to get out of the forest. That was the initial pitch that did not get accepted, and I would love to turn that into an issue. I think that was a good story. But yeah, the rest of the characters, I think there's a lot of inspiration from a lot of different things in my childhood. I keep mentioning, and like I said, Sonic Sat.I.M., which I never watched, serves as an inspiration in the sense of like, this is kind of how I would have imagined it would be, in certain senses. And of course, I read Archie Sonic, so I have some biases in how certain things should be worked out. So in some ways, I think when I was coming up with the pitch was at the same time that Archie Sonic was being rebooted, and I was like, damn it, how can I make that live on without actually being Archie Sonic? So I was like formulating all these things in my head, like, what's the game that I used to play? What would kids like? Maybe they'll have a little bit of this and a little bit of that and a little bit of that. So it just became what it is now, and I'm like really proud of it. So, I know, you said you don't remember that initial pitch, but so when you were writing the script for issue 1, did you forget about that initial pitch?
I had, because it had been so long, and Eternal Quest has become something so different.
Yeah,
and Ash and Alm's characterization has changed, but not
they're still
fully
very
changed.
similar.
It's evolved from what they were. They were more confrontational, I would say, in the animation pitch. They were a little more abrasive towards each other, whereas in their current incarnation with Eternal Quest, they're a little more brotherly. It's a little more chummy between the two of them.
Yeah, and I don't think I had this planned at the time during the pitch, but in creating the comic and the script, and I actually have a whole backstory with them that they grew up together. Now, that might have been in the pitch, but it obviously didn't show too well that they were as chummy. But currently, they are practically brothers. They were orphans that were raised by their master. If you take a look at the bio that I put up on Twitter, which I'll mention the link later, but basically they both grew up in Prism Village, and they were orphans, and so because the way they were, or at least the way Ash was, he was very confrontational. The village sensei, in quotes, I don't know what you would officially refer to him as, the resident old wise man, I suppose. Took him in and was like, let's straighten this out. Let's take your confrontational spirit and channel it in a correct way. So, and because of that, and he also knew of who was like the resident coward. He's a kid who didn't like confrontation, and so he would constantly stick up for him. And then one day he was like, "Why don't you just come to the resident old wise man with me, and we'll train together?" And so that's how they started learning how to fight at an early age. Not learning how to fight to actually fight, but just to train like a kid would do karate. Let's channel this somehow. And so that's how they became who they are. And so Ash was always into up close combat because of his nature, and so that's why he uses swords or bamboo sticks or whatever it was when he was training. And doesn't like confrontation, so he, from afar, would use things like slingshots and maybe a bow and arrow or whatever is long range. And so when they stole the tech, when leaving the village, when they stole Blythe's tech, they took the sword and the gun. So the laser razor and the laser taser, just another rhyming scheme. So yeah, that's how they came about. And the names, where did I come up with the names? Ash, I wanted it to be reminiscent of the Andrew and Alex of my friend and I when we were kids. So I was like, let's choose the two A's. But the main character in my other comic, Spirit Legends, is already Andrew. I don't need two Andrews. So I came up with Ash because I was like, hot-headed, Ash, hot. I was like, that's cool. And it was harder to come up with, but the only other like one syllable A name I could think of was Ace, and I was like, that doesn't feel fitting to him. And I came across the name from a Fire Emblem game, just because it was a one syllable name, and I was looking it up, and I'm like, this sounds like it's reminiscent of the word calm. And I was like, well, I hope I can use this name because I'm going to. So it's like, there's my two one syllable A names, Ash and So that's how their names came about. Quiet. Too quiet. Careful, it's a trap. Use bombs wisely.
Don't want to throw off your train of thought. Now,
no, I know.
The first issue, you've been trickling out pages little by little. What is your big game plan for the first issue?
So I'm going to be releasing pages on Patreon early. I mean, eventually they're going to be available to the public. The next page is just about ready to be released, but the current colorist, who is Rero, we were going back and forth on how I wanted. So, because the next scene takes place in Hideaway, and because it is covered, like the whole point of it being hidden is that the treetops are so massive that they block out the sky, so you can't actually see the village from an aerial view. So to me, I was like, the only light you would get is the light from between the leaves. So would this scene be darker, even though it's daytime? So the coloring is done, but I was going back and forth with her on two different takes, a more brighter or a darker take. And that's why the next page is taking so long, because it's ready, but I wanted to make sure that the right color scheme was chosen for it. So I wanted to have that page out already, but it got delayed because of that. I asked Lala, she liked one, and I liked and Rero liked the other one. So I was like, well, you both like two different ones, or you each like a different one. So it's up to me now to decide which one I like. I mean, I could show it to you too, Ian, if you want, but it's just like, I think both of them work. So it's just a matter of preference. One just a little darker. But yeah, that's the next scene where another character comes in which is, he's on the cover. Like all the characters have been shown off on the cover. So he's the one with the gauntlets. which I believe I called them the fisticuffs, and you gave him an accent because he's a little bit of a bully, but he's not a true bully. He's just like I guess you could call him a bit of a meathead.
He's a little rough around the edges.
Yeah.
He's not a refined gentleman.
Right.
He's in there gonna mix it up,
You had a really funny joke in the script that I had to I remember we were going back and forth, and we had to scale it back because it made him a little bit too stupid looking.
Yeah.
And I was like, I love this joke so much, but it's just not fitting him. So we kind of scaled it back. It was like, I mean, this is, the patrons can hear this stuff. I mean, it's not like the whole world is listening to this, but there's this joke where he's like, he gets so involved in himself, and he's like, oh, you should have taken me along for the ride. I would have given them like what for, and he's like doing the punching motions. And the joke that we had that I have to double check because it's in there still, but in a different context. Initially, it's like when they come back because they're gonna leave the village again, he's still there punching the air, like he didn't realize everybody left, and he's just so caught up in his own like taunting or whatever you would call it. And I was like, this is hilarious, but he's not that stupid. So we scaled it back, so the joke is still somehow present. Again, I have to look at the script again, but yeah, he's not Boom Knuckles Conga. Although you can argue he's the closest to Boom Knuckles out of everyone. But yeah, you gave him an interesting accent of like a ruffian kind of accent, which I like. But I kept going back and forth, like I couldn't pinpoint what this accent was. And I don't know, I was just like, well, I guess, Ian, you're the only one who could write this now because you're the only one who knows the accent.
There you go, folks. Built-in job security.
Yes, there you go. If you want to secure your job, only put something in that you know. But yeah,
these are your characters, and this is the first issue that is exploring who they are and establishing their core traits. So there will be a lot of trial and error in finding the right voice, not just because it's you discovering it yourself, but you're having someone else interpret your work.
Yeah. And that goes for the other characters too. Like the reason I'm stumbling is I'm trying to think of how much I can reveal without revealing too much. And I think I could talk about the main cast because they are the main cast. They're going to be in the next few pages. You have Annette, who is the one with the green hair on the cover, with a rabbit on her shoulder, who is named Mr. Hops. Well, actually, his full name is Mr. Hippity Hops, but because her father owns a tavern, I mean, that's where the Mr. Hops comes in. But she is kind of like the de facto leader of the group in that she's like everybody else kind of follows her lead. She's the natural born leader. But also it's very fitting that her father owns the tavern and that's where they hang out. Not that they drink alcohol. I mean, they'll probably get their occasional sody pop or whatever. In fact, the first thing Ash says when he comes in, he's like, boy, did we have an adventure. I'm thirsty, And then Annette quickly runs up to them and is like, where the heck were you? So, there's this whole cast of characters I'm just so excited to show everybody. And it's just like, oh, yeah, it takes a while to work on this stuff. That's the problem with self-publishing is that, like, everybody is just like they got to do it on their own time, which is understandable. But it's like I'm so excited to just show this, and it's like it's all in my head, and it's coming out on paper, and it's like, come on, I can't wait to show everyone.
There's also the issue too is that you're funding this out of pocket. This is your own personal income that is going into this project, and you've got a budget for real life.
Exactly.
So, and even though I'm charging my indie rate, I'm not going to charge professional rate. That would be ridiculous.
I don't even want to know it. I don't want to know what your professional rate is.
It's not low.
I'm sure it's not. I'm not IDW. I'm not Sega.
No.
It's still, it adds up real darn quick since you put together a full team and you've never haggled. You're like, all right, that's the rate. That's what I'm going to go by. And
I believe in people being paid fairly for what they deserve their worth. And if I can't afford it, I'm not going to I'm not going to haggle. I'm going to be like, all right, I can't afford that.
And that's why I keep coming back to you, or you keep coming. That's why we keep working together, because I trust you to do things right. Yeah. And that's why you should be supporting his Patreon, because he is doing his darndest to do this the proper way, to get his vision out there. I mean, he paid his way onto the show. You know, this is not free advertisement on his part. He's really putting his money where his mouth is. So go over to where, sir?
Patreon.com/eternalquest.
And give the man $1, why don't you?
Yeah. And you don't get charged monthly. You get charged per page. So if no page comes out in that month, you get to keep your money. I got 2 patrons right now, which is awesome. I love it. But the next page has not come out, so I haven't made any money yet. It's almost ready to come out, like I said. It's pretty much ready to go. We were just trying to figure out the correct color scheme for that page. But I was gonna say something. Oh yeah, I also on top of wanting people to get paid what they feel like they're worth, I also because I hate when I hear about people getting scammed out of money. I'm like, no, I'm gonna pay you. Like, I make sure to pay people. I have some people that are like, can you pay me half up front because I've been screwed over, and I'm like, absolutely. Here you go, So I give them half up front. Like, I believe in not screwing people over. So yeah, on my other project, Spirit Legends, I got somebody to help me with some backgrounds and inking. And so I found somebody who, that's their rate. And I was like, all right, that I could work with that. And they said that they've been screwed over a lot. So the first few pages they work on, can I pay them half up front? I was like, sure. Yeah, that works. So yeah, that's one thing I try to stand by. It's like, you pay people for their work. You don't screw people over.
And that's, a general good rule of thumb for any indie or freelance artist listening to this is, these days it is better to get at least a partial payment up front. And if anyone's like, I don't know about it, then maybe it's time to look for somebody else, especially if they come to you.
Yeah.
They're like, yo, I love your style. I really want to work with you. Can you do this? And it's like, yeah, sure. 50% up front. Okay. And they're like, I don't know, man. Yeah, no. Red flag.
If they're not willing to give half up front, they're probably not willing to pay you.
Yeah.
Here's my rates. Oh, you charge? Oh.
I thought you did it for the love of the art.
Yeah, well, yes, but I also got to eat,
When it gets big, you get the exposure.
It's like, I'm sick of that too. Because I went to school for cartooning, and lo and behold, my career is not cartooning, but I'm trying my damnedest to still do something with it, and I am, but, I stop paying the bills, I'm paying it. So, but yeah, it's like, since then, I've tried to get jobs here and there doing cartooning, and there's a lot of people who are just like, do you take requests? And I'm like, I don't want to do this for free. So I get it. I've been on both ends now, so that's why it's easier for me to understand. If I was the artist, I believe what I'm worth, and it would be nice to be paid up front. So it's like, I get it, But that also comes with making sure that you find the right people. I've reached out to people who I think are scam artists, and I'm like, never mind. You kind of just gotta read the situation as best as possible. And it also helps when people you've worked with reference you to other people. Like you've passed some people my way, Ian, which I'm grateful for. And it's like, oh, awesome. These are real people that are not scam artists. So,
or they better not be if they came from me.
Better not be, yeah. Ian, what'd you do?
Vouch for you.
How dare you? But yeah, I'm really excited about this project, and I wish it could come out faster. And that's just what happens when you fund something yourself and you're not a big publisher. It's just like, come on, just give me some time. The pages are coming out, guys. Just hold your horses. They're coming. Man, so it's like, instead of an issue a month, it's like an issue ? It's out when it's out. And you're working on Dragoon, so you know what it's like working on something yourself. And I took some advice from you. I asked a while back on the show about like, what do you do when you have things planned, like from a Dragon Ball perspective, like you're in the first arc of like the friends just meeting up and you have Super Saiyan God already planned. Like you have everything up to Super Saiyan God planned. It's just like, what do you do? And your advice was to just focus on now. And I'm like, that makes sense. So like even on my other project, like I have the entire series penned out, like some stuff in detail and other stuff vague. And it's just like, well, I hope I get to tell that, but for now I'm still in the first saga.
Exactly. Like
so that's the same with this.
If you're just focused on the horizon, you're not going to see the road in front of you.
Right.
And it also will drive you crazy.
Oh yeah.
Like, I can't wait to get to the cool stuff. Well, the cool stuff is the whole journey. Mm-hmm. And if the beginning of your story isn't part of the cool stuff, then maybe you need to rethink the start of your story, you know? And then you get, well, what happened before? Well, that was cool. So maybe I could move back my in media res a little further and start from here. Well, that needs an explanation. I'll push it back a little further here. Oh, wait, no, that just added, 7 years to my timeline. That's no good. And
oh man, I know all that too well. But at least for Eternal Quest, I have the first 3 seasons. Like I have ideas for them. They're going to need some help from you and some more thought from me with just nailing them down and the best way to approach them. But I already have the first 3 seasons like planned out. Like this is where it's going to lead to, and then this is where the next one's going to lead to. And I've already been in my head kind of building up a rogues gallery as a result. And I'm just like really excited to get it all out there. But it's like people got to know who the main villain and the main heroes are first. So it's like, I already know who they are. So that's why I'm looking at everything else. But then it's like I got to step back and realize nobody else knows who they are yet. So
exactly, it's torture.
It is, especially because I can see this. And like it was initially pitched as a cartoon, so I can see the scenes in my head being on a streaming service, if not TV. And it's like I can see the last episode and like how like this goes down. And it's just like but it's not even being animated. The first issue's not even out.
And you
so torturous.
Revised and supervised and gone over this initial story so many times. It's old to you by now. It's familiar. It's like, this is done. It's done. Oh, I'm ready to move on, and it's not done. It's still baking.
Yeah, it's like even it's so hard because I got like even that initial pitch where they go into the Wayward Woods is like patent pending. They go into the Wayward Woods, and it's like, oh yeah, that nobody even knows about that. It's like that's in my head. I should retell that story in another issue. So it's just so like torturous in one sense. It's great in another sense because it's exciting to show that stuff to people, but when it's not ready to be shown and it's been in your head for years, you're like, oh god. I just want to get onto the next thing already from my perspective.
And along that line, you have another project that you have going right now.
I do. That is Spirit Legends, and that's been out for years, and once in a while I get some people reading it, and I have it on. There's Kablam for the printing and Indie Planet for the. I think you could purchase stuff on Indie Planet. But I have it for a free digital download, and so every once in a while, like today, like I had 3 emails from Indie Planet saying like issue 1 was ordered, and I was like, oh cool, like so people are reading it. It's just like I don't know who those people are, and I wish that I can be like, oh, did you check this out, or about this, and it's hard. But that I'm hoping that now that you are, so I guess a hashtag knowing smile kind of revealed is that you're coming on board to Spirit Legends as a consultant to help me really perfect my ideas, I guess, in a sense. This is where I don't know how to say these things, and that's where you come in to like write it out better. But like issue 6 is in the works, and I wrote the script out, and I'm a very visual person, so my script was really just 20 pages of thumbnails. And and you took that and you were like, you gave me some direction and I changed it and we went back and forth. I was like, oh wow, this just is so much better now. Like it was essentially the same, but a couple of little tweaks here and there. Like the main character would in my original pitch, he was like talking to somebody and you were like, I don't think that he's the type who would actually have this kind of conversation. I was like, you know what? You might be right there. And we just reworked it and some of those scenes changed and some of it was removed for a later point and it just came out so much more well developed. And I'm just like so excited to show off that too. And it's like, oh, that's also in the works now. And it's just like there's so much stuff I want to show people that's just like still in the works. It's so hard. But
I'm
that's
glad you're happy
too.
with it because whenever I do a consultation gig like that, I'm always worried I'm being too terse, too direct. I mean, I don't want to waste your time with being, very kid's glove. I understand your thinking here, but I believe, in my personal opinion, from my own professional background, that you should approach this possibly maybe from this direction. You're a busy man. You want yourself out there, and you don't pay me for being nice. You pay me to,
I take all
so it's like
all critiquing and criticism. I want to hear it all.
I think
I don't want the kids' gloves on. Yeah.
This is not working because of this, and that's all with the asterisks of this is how I think you should do it.
Yeah,
but this is your project. You understand what your ultimate goal is, so there will be a time where it's like, no, I really need it to work this way. And it's like, well, now it just sounds like a jerk.
There was like there was a couple of scenarios where I was like, oh, but this is where it's leading, or like this is how this character would be. So like I wasn't just like 100% like, oh, bow down to Ian, he knows how my comic should be. It was kind of like, let me know what you think. And I didn't take everything 100%. I was like, I still think like this is a better route for this, but the other stuff you said makes sense. So it came out as like my story with your direction in some areas, which is great because it worked out that way. Like there's a scene, I know one in particular. There's a scene where, because the main character has this pendant, and that pendant gives him these powers. And there's a scene where one of the soldiers decides to shoot him because he knows that he's going to deflect it. It's not going to be deadly to him. And I think your input was like, why would they shoot this kid? And I was like, but they know that it's not going to injure him. And I forgot the exact conversation, but what I'm getting at is that it wasn't like, oh yeah, you're right. It was like, well, here's my perspective on it, and we were able to go back and forth on it. And I think there was this kind of like, what's the word I'm looking for? There was kind of like this settling on both parts, and it was like, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense for like whatever ultimately ended up happening. And it was just, I think there was even a wording in there that was like, oh, because we know that you're strong enough to resist bullets, like lethal force has been approved. Something along those lines, where it was like explained to the viewer, like, oh, we can use guns because it's not gonna, it's not deadly to you. So I think there was some kind of what.
That and the nice side of being a consultant is I can tell you my opinion all day and all night. You can take it or leave it. That's fine by me. My only job is to say, hey, I think this. And you're like, no, okay, job still done.
Yeah, although I think I've pretty much taken everything you've said, and I've either just went all in or reworked it so that my initial idea was still there. But I think all of your input is in the final product in some way, shape, or form. So yeah, that's one project you're also working on with me. So you're a consultant on Spirit Legends, and you're the script writer on Eternal Quest.
And you can support either of those by going to patreon.com/eternalquest or
patreon.com/spiritlegends.
And there you go. It's so easy.
Can you imagine like, because their whole stance is Sonic's World doesn't have money, so it's like you do your job and then they just give you like a paper slip of like Vector with a thumbs up, and you're like, I only take cash, and they're like, there's no money in Sega Land. It's like, okay. You get paid in exposure.
No.
Here you go, buddy.
Sega would have gone out of business
kudos.
ages ago if they did it that way.
You just get some like Sonic merch.
It's all just
Like, here's the Sonic hat. Yeah, that'll pay the bills. Please, can I have some more?
Oh dear.
More? But yeah, so yeah, I'm excited about Eternal Quest, and I'm excited about Spirit Legends, although it seems like more people are excited about Eternal Quest than Spirit Legends, which I understand. I mean, Spirit Legends is more of a personal love project on my end, and if people like that, then that's cool that they read it. I've had people read it, and then they're like, I didn't think it was going to be for me, but by the end of the first issue, I really enjoyed it. I was like, awesome. And I've had some, other people are like, oh, it's just like your typical action series that, the story's not too heavy, but it's still enjoyable. I'm like, cool. If you enjoyed it, that's great. So, and then Eternal Quest is just a completely different kind of series. Like Spirit Legends is your anime-inspired fighter with probably a basic story now, although in my head I have such, like, huge story plans for it, but again, that's later. So it's like your typical Dragon Ball Z Naruto, where it's like, oh, the villain appeared and I'm gonna fight him, and haha. And by the end, there's a lot of story, but it just took a while to get to it all. Whereas Eternal Quest is more like your Saturday morning American cartoon, where you can watch it out of order, but it's gonna make more sense if you watch it in order. Like, you don't want to see the ending before the beginning. But the point is, like, you could pick it up anywhere. Which is like, Sonic as a comic is that way too. Or even Mega Man, which are really the only two Archie comics I read, Sonic and Mega Man. And I read Cosmo, and I hate the fact that that's not still going. The Mighty Martian. I mean, come on. Ian, why'd you cancel that?
Yeah, sure.
You were going somewhere with that. I saw by the end. I can't speak for you, but I felt like you were leading up to the Venusian Queen, or like one of her henchmen seemed like they were going to be a part of the team, and it was like, oh well, this is never going to happen. Mega Man, Archie Sonic has a better chance of coming back, it seems.
I did have a third arc in mind, to be sure, but sadly that has not materialized.
Well, when I become a mega corporation streaming service, I'm going to buy it so you can continue it.
I appreciate that. I look forward to that.
I wish. Oh, God, I wish. Funny enough, I don't want to jinx it, but I have in the back of my head, like, there is a startup I've been working with who is trying to get a cartoon out there that I'm working with them on, and one of their ultimate goals is to have a streaming service. I'm just like crossing my fingers. I'm like, please let me be in charge of a streaming service to an extent, because I have cartoon ideas up the wazoo. And I know people who have cartoon ideas up the wazoo. So it's just like, please, please, please. But who knows if that's ever going to happen. That's like wishful thinking.
Everybody's got to start from somewhere,
I'm so excited about
humble
it.
Beginnings.
Yeah.
And given how much the animation industry has been thrown under the bus lately, having a dedicated streaming service that caters to that audience probably makes a lot of sense about now.
Yeah. I feel like I know, I'm not a business person, but I feel like as a creative, if I had any kind of hand in the administration of a streaming service, I would know some of the best options, at least from the perspective of what do people want to see. And I know some places I would go to and some people I would ask for stuff. Right off the bat, I feel like if we had an animation studio at said streaming service, I'd be like, hey, Ian, you want to make Drogoon an anime? Like, there are certain people I know who to reach out to because they have good ideas, and they bring with them, like, people who have already interests in that stuff. But it's like, I can't promise anything because I don't know if any of that stuff's going to work out. But the point is, like, I'm ready for it. I know people, like another friend of mine who I worked on projects with him, and we were doing, I'll give him a shout out. He has, it was called Puppy Rain, and I did the artwork for it. It was a comic strip. That's Rayn, Puppy Rain, and it was just a kid's comic strip, and that was fun too. And he tried pushing that as a kids show or like in a newspaper with me as the artist. And it's like all these people I've worked with, I want to help them just like they gave me a chance. So like if one day I'm gonna go to those people and be like, yo, you want to put your cartoon on our streaming service, you know? Like, so it's like everybody's got to help each other, you know?
Exactly.
So yeah, whether it's Drogoon or anything else from you, or whether it's that guy's Puppy Rain or some other stuff, or if it's people I don't know yet, or the people I've worked with in the past, I'm gonna like go to everybody if I'm able to and be like, yo, let's make this. Or Kyle and his Sonic, because we know he's in charge of it.
That would be awesome. Yes, I am in charge of Sonic. Don't question it.
Yeah, so yeah, I'm excited about Eternal Quest, Spirit Legends, that thing that I don't want to put all my eggs in one basket, so I'm just hoping that works out. You know, I don't know if that's ever going to work out, but the whole streaming service thing, but that excites me too, the fact that it's a possibility. But in the realm of reality, there's Eternal Quest that I'm working on and Spirit Legends, and there are people who are excited for Eternal Quest, and probably in big part of it with all the names on it, because, you know, Lala's art is amazing, your writing is amazing. God, yeah. Oh my God,
Lala,
why is she not working on
good.
like IDW Sonic? Like what?
I don't know.
Sega, hire her. I can vouch for her too because I work with her. She's amazing. Like, she does work fast. She gets back to you with any revisions fast. There are times when she'll make a quick revision and she's like, "Don't worry about it. You know, it's just a quick like thing." Like in one of the upcoming pages, there's this thing I really wanted to do where panels 1 and 2 are the exact same panel, but like the characters move. And it's the one where Annette is first met, and she's like pinning a banner up on the ceiling in one panel where Ash comes in to the tavern saying he's thirsty, and then the next panel she quickly like zooms down off the ladder and she's yelling at them for being late, and it's the exact same panel, but she did such a good job. And so, like, there's a fireplace in the background, and the second panel is like, I think that's the only thing that should not be exact, because the fire wouldn't look exactly the same in the next panel. And she came back with she quickly came back like with the fire redrawn, and she's like, "Don't worry about it." And I was like, "Awesome," you know. So she's like, props to her, she's amazing. Props to you, your writing is great, and the fact that you worked with these characters before in the pitch, I was like, you're the perfect person to come to for this. And everybody else who's worked on it has done amazing as well, so it's just really exciting. And I can't wait to showcase more Eternal Quest to everyone, and the plans for that, and the Rogues Gallery that's still in my head, that is also a little bit in a document that... when it comes time, Ian, for us to make plans, probably once we're a little bit more than halfway through issue 1, I'll probably have to come to you and be like, all right, let's start talking about the next few issues. But I do have a document where it's like, this is where we're headed. And I have some characters planned out. I also came to you and mentioned to you, I have plans for, in season 3, having a world tour arc where I want to start exploring the world of this series and not just the continent. And so, again, I shouldn't be thinking so far ahead, but I already am. And I'm already thinking about what's in the other regions in this world. And, like, I love homages to the point where people think that I'm copying things sometimes. And then I'm like, all right, I got to step back because I don't want to steal. Like, that's not my intention, but I just have so much love for certain things that I'm like, I want to just have, like, a nod and a hint. Like in Spirit Legends, there's a character who's very reminiscent of Mega Man, but like once you start getting into his character and how he battles, like he's a berserker. He is not Mega Man. Like it's so totally different, but in appearance, he's a bit of an homage to it. So it's like I love these homages, but the fact that the fact that it's personal projects and they get made so slow, people don't get a chance to see how different they are. So what is actually just an homage in like a visual aesthetic or something to other people who haven't gotten a chance to get knee deep into those things, it looks like a blatant copy. So it's really hard. You want to be like, just give it some time and you'll see why it's different. But that comes with like getting more of the project done. So it sucks in that sense too when things take so long because you're like, I'm not copying, I swear. Just give it some time. But the whole world tour thing, I think I'm like really excited to get to whenever we do, just because I know that like you have built up worlds like multiple times already. Like Sonic was rebooted how many times now? It's just like, oh, this is the world I built for Sonic, gotta redo it. This is the new world I built for Sonic, oh, gotta redo it again. This is a new world I rebuilt for Sonic. So yeah, it's I'm excited to build the world with you when we get the chance.
I look forward to it, as long as my schedule's open. But
we'll
cross that bridge when we come to it.
Yep.
Yes.
I've long since given up trying to predict the future or plan more than like a week ahead. It's a fool's errand.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I know exactly what I'm doing for the next few months. No, you don't. No, you don't.
Nope. We're canceling the comic you've been working on.
No. No.
All right. To sum it up.
Yep.
We've got Eternal Quest and Spirit Legend, both labors of love by Andrew. He's doing the projects right, the way they should be, and he needs your support to help move them along just a little bit faster. Where can folks find your work and help support your projects?
So, if you want to support them, which will also get the pages released at least a week early. Sometimes a week passes and I'm too lazy to put it out publicly, and a week winds up being a few weeks or a month. So your best bet is to see it on Patreon. So you got patreon.com/eternalquest for Eternal Quest. That's ETERNALQUEST if you don't know how to spell it. And for Spirit Legends, it's patreon.com/Spirit Legends. That's SPIRITLEGENDS. They both go to me. They're both separate. I mean, they both go to me in the sense that I control both those Patreons. It's not like, haha, give me all your money. But it's like, those are my Patreons. I make announcements on Twitter. That's twitter.com/DrewMaruComics. That's DREWMARU_COMICS. If you didn't know how to spell comics, I'd be surprised, but you never know. And there are some other links for where you can view these projects. Like Spirit Legends, I have on many different places, whether it's my DeviantArt or Tapas.io. I feel like if I could just keep going on and on and on, I think it would be better for me to just send you links, Ian, and just say, check the links in the description. But I think the main one
description below.
Yep, but I think the main ones are the ones I already said. The patreon.com/EternalQuest, patreon.com/Spirit Legends, and for announcements would be twitter.com/DrewMaruComics. And I also have my own Discord, but it's a little bit of a wasteland in the sense that it's not much activity going on in there. So maybe one day people
that'll change after this episode.
Maybe.
All them crazy EU fans beating down your e-door.
Yeah. Well, the link to my Discord is on my Twitter, so if you go from link to link to link, you'll find it. So
the links are linked, so to speak.
Yes, the linking links of Linkington.
So many links.
So many links. The missing links.
Thank you so much, Andrew, for sponsoring this episode. Best of luck to you on your future projects, and which I guess are kind of my projects too, in a sense, but they're mostly yours. Yep. And if you would like a guest spot on the show yourself, head over to patreon.com/BumbleKast and buy yourself a guest spot. Till then, we'll see you next time on the BumbleKast.
What doesn't make sense is we no longer have a timeline split, which, all right, whatever.
Yeah, that's a weird one, but...
It's weird because Metal Sonic was lost on Little Planet at the end of CD, and then he was brought back from Little Planet in both Mania and 4, where is clearly, like, being saved in two different timelines from the events of CD. And then Mania shows us that there's a bunch of Metal Sonic models in the background. So it's like, oh, obviously there were other Metal Sonic models. I mean, even Knuckles Chaotix description of Metal Sonic says that it's a new model. It's like Sega has been pointing at there being more than one Metal Sonic, but nowadays they're like, there's only one Metal Sonic, and because Sonic is more of a brand, we can't change the past, even if it made sense. It's like, or we have to change the past, even if it made sense then. It's like, you're killing me. You already set in stone that there's more than one Metal Sonic, but because now there's not, you have to change the past. Okay, I'm done.
Just a consultant.
No, I get it. I'm not
Ninja vanish.
I'm not putting the blame on you. I'm just like ranting, like, it made sense, and you had to change it for the brand.
I feel bad because we keep getting questions that are like, "No, Ian, you're wrong because this, and this," and it's like, well, sorry,
he knows.
He knows, but unfortunately, that's just the way it is now.
Yeah.
So
that's why I try to be careful with my questions. I don't say like, Ian, you're wrong about this. I'm like, this was the case at one point, and this is how it is now. And it's like the answer is always like, well, that's how it is now. And I'm like, oh, okay, all right.
Yeah.
Doesn't make sense. It made sense before, but because it's a brand over a video game, it's like you want the brand to stay consistent, so you have to corrupt the continuity of the past. Ugh, so weird.
You've been listening to the BumbleKast, a co-production of Bumble King Comics and the KNGI Network. Original theme music composed by Ken Coda Snyder. Remixed intro by T-Lopes. Find out more information, along with podcast feeder links, MP3 downloads, and more at bumbleking.com and kngi.org.
Oh, I have to say, congratulations on your success with Sonic Frontiers. I wanted to start the show with that and forgot to say that. So
no, this is your show.
But it's your show
too. Is out.
That's not
Frontiers
my show.
Has been out. What?
If this was my show, I would be the Bumble King.
Fair enough.
Frontiers is old.
Welcome to the BumbleKast. I'm your host, Andrew D.
No, shut it down.
No,
shut it down. I've been
it's over.
usurped.
No. Get out. Get out of here.
My co-hosts. My co-hosts, Ian Flynn and Kyle. JCRB Krause.
No. I will not stand for this. Get up. Get out.
I will not stand for this. Kyle, I am.
Treason, I say.
Treason. The Bumble treason. Bumble mutiny.
Mutiny. No. Oh, no. I'll have none of that.
Blasted Bumble conquistadors coming in, taking my show.
Bumble Conquistador. When are you gonna have a group, like a freedom fighter-esque group called the Bumbles, and just have like the Bumble King, the Bumble Queen, the Bumble Joker? Like, they're just I don't know. I know Sega doesn't want you to make bugs, so they don't have to be bugs, but they could be dressed in the Bumble King attire with like the headband and antennas.
I no. We have seen what happens when writers take their personal influence too far in Sonic. There's a hard line I should not cross.
I mean, it would be kind of it'd be kind of a funny little gag, but you know, let's not.
It's a slippery slope.
Let's not go too far. Nah,
we don't need no Bumblerinos in the background with the.
We don't need the. We don't need. I don't know if this is going on the show or not. You can edit this out, but we don't need the Bumble Sue Chronicles.
We don't need somebody in the background of Station Square reading Drogon. We don't need that. No, it's okay.
Well, I mean, at least you wouldn't write it in there. You have no control over what the artist does, though.
Well, sure. If an artist threw in like the Easter egg, I'd be thankful, but I ain't gonna script it.
Yeah, no.
The most indulgent I ever got was with the Silver Arc and Dark Inner Jack, and that was because that was a throwaway continuity.
Yeah, you weren't even responsible for yours and Aaliyah's character's cameo.
I do love
in
that,
the wedding.
I do love cameos.
Like, I asked Tracy to fit them into the crowd scene somewhere.
Oh, right, you're right. But they were like, you were expecting them to be way in the back, not like toward the front, very, very visible.
I didn't even give him color references.
No, he figured that out on his own.
Being off. Yeah, it's like, I'm really touched. Oh God, this is too much. This is great of you. Why did you go this far?
Now people think I have this much control.
How long has it been since the BumbleKast started? How long has it been since the Bumble King forums was ended?
I thought it was 10 episodes into the BumbleKast, which would make it 2015, because we started in October 2015, I think.
Oh, back in my day, we were at a forum.
Yes. Oh, the forums. The broken forums that were broken.
Because you would do the Q&As as the characters, which was also fun, which you can't really do here because... it's audio, but from a written perspective, like just reading, it was fun to see the Q&As in as the characters, like Sonic, what would you do for this? And then you would write it as Sonic answering the question, which was fun. So
it was a good exercise too, but nowadays especially, I need to be more mindful of that. I'm seen as a representative of the brand way
long
more.
gone are the days of Fiona Fox and Scourge in Sonic's bed.
May they rot in peace.
I remember that question. It's like, why am I interested in this answer? Because it's just like, it feels like a behind the scenes blooper reel. That's what I mean. It's like, I'm interested in the fact that this is ridiculous stuff that could obviously doesn't happen in Sonic. I mean, off panel, characters do things, but it's just like, that's not the focus in the story. To have bloopers of characters just answering questions and doing stuff is like, ooh, that's neat.
We kind of have a spiritual successor with the Twitter takeovers. I'm not involved with that, but
yeah, that's true. I also like
far between, but that kind of scratches the itch.
I also like the fact that the off panels treated the Sonic characters as if they were in the offices and everything was like a show. We never see that anymore. Even the IDW comics don't do funny shorts at the end, which I kind of miss. Do you know if there's any interest in them doing that?
I honestly don't know. I think they've got enough content at the end of the book as it is. And off panel in the Archie days was done in-house. Those weren't approved by Sega. They were just goofs.
Right.
With the current arrangement, they would probably have to be approved by Sega, and that might add another wrinkle. It would be one more thing that would have to be approved, and that's we got enough right now as it is.
So no more Mama Robotnik comics by John Gray?
Not so long as I live.
Oh, you're not going to be able to stop him. He just won't be able to actually put them in the comic, unfortunately.
I have enough blunt objects. I can stop him.
You know where he lives.
You shall not draw. He's just going to put them in the next cover he makes. It's just going to be like a Mama Robotnik in the background.
Somewhere, somehow. It's going to be like one of those Mad magazine covers. You fold it in half and...
Oh my God.
There's Mama Robotnik, yep.
The 30 character composites into a single Mama Robotnik and a floral
the
bikini.
One who made... Who was the one who made Bronze Knuckles?
I think... Was that my joke? And then John drew it? John, went even further with it by making, Michael Jackson moonwalk and whatnot. But yeah, I want to say Brass Knuckles was mine.
There's so many fun little concepts in those shorts that I miss. Just because they're all of what if we took it this way kind of joke. And it's they're like bloopers. And it's we don't get that anymore, but that's all right.
I don't know. I think my all-time favorite still remains Handsome Nagas.
Yeah.
Because I knew what I was doing with that. I was baiting him to be as awful as possible.
And he did.
And he did. Yeah. And then Aaliyah was coloring it, and she mistook the skin-tight bodysuit that he normally wears as a Speedo. So she went, well, it's John. He must have intended it to be this awful. So she went whole hog, and he was not expecting that. Because it's skin-tight. Because he's handsome. I remember the scream John made when he saw that. just this shriek of horrified laughter. So, yeah, I knew it was going to be bad, and it was worse than I imagined, and it's great for it.
The bait. The Ian bait. That Mama Robotnik is really scary. I just noticed the long toenails. Ugh.